Well folks, this is a very quick video about something I've found when doing the throttle, right hand throttle switchgear in my previous video. This is a picture of the pull cable on the wheel that operates the fuel injector, you know, the throttle basically. Now I noticed this a long time ago. The idea is that nipple there should sit in a circular hole either side of a wheel with a groove in the middle of it to accommodate the actual cable. And I noticed when I took my little side cover off the injector that it was cockeyed like that. Now over the couple of months I've tried to get it to sit straight in the hole, which goes either side. Imagine a wheel, and there's a groove in it for the cable, or for the two cables, and you can see on the top there, the hole there, look, with a slot in it to put the cable through. That nipple is supposed to sit between the two halves of that wheel and enable the cable itself, when you accelerate or decelerate, that nipple should be able to articulate in that hole to allow the cable to sort of unravel. But I've never ever succeeded in getting it to do anything other than what's in that photograph. Now today, doing the right hand throttle and having to take it all off, I gave it a bit of a thorough examination, so it's a bit concerning really, because that nipple doesn't sit in the hole at the other side of that wheel and it's cockeyed like that. What it's doing, it's passing any strain on to the base of the actual cable where it joins the nipple instead of it articulating in the wheel. Now the result of that is that there is a pronounced kink developed in the cable itself, which you'll see in this photograph that's coming up now. It's not so pronounced on the push cable actually. But you'll see this cable here now. This is actually the pull cable coming up, and you'll see it's not in fantastic condition. I think it's looking like it's wants to snap. And if you look at that, that's not right. The cable's a bit frayed. Look, there's a pronounced bend in it. And that is really what's happening, and because that circular sort of cylindrical nipple is not long enough. The diameter of it is 5 mil, and it's 6 millimeters from front to rear as it sits in the little wheel on the injector. It's 6 mil, and it needs to be about 9 mil to really engage in the hole at the far side of the wheel. So what it's doing is popping out all the time. Now I did think about nipping the two sides of the wheel together with a pair of pliers, but then it interferes with the actual cable. It's the perfect distance between the halves to allow the cable to rotate and not get stuck. So the issue is, I would say that nipple is about 3 mil not long enough. If it was 3 mil longer, if it were 9 mil, then it would go through the hole at the far side of the circular wheel thing on the fuel injector, and it would stick out 1.5 mil or so on the near side instead of just popping out all the time. And that's what it does. I've succeeded with long nose pliers in getting that nipple to go back into the hole at the far side of that wheel, and it all looks great, and then the minute you accelerate or twist the throttle, it just pops out the far side and ends up cockeyed. So it's passing strain onto the cable, as you can see there. Now that, to me, annoying as that is, it's more than just a frayed cable. That's a ruined trip for somebody, or stuck at the side of the road raining, or some godforsaken middle of nowhere, and you find that your pull cable snaps right there. That to me is what it means. It's a spoiled trip, and anything that happens afterwards, like having to, I don't know, knock on a farmhouse to try and get some help from somebody, and it turns out they're an axe murderer. Yep, could be as bad as that. Or you leave your bike to go and try and find a pair of pliers or something, and if you haven't got them with you, and you come back and somebody's stolen it. All of that. Now, if you look at that cable there, that's all because of that. If you look at there, you'll see there's a flat bit, and it's shinier. So that's where it's the wear is occurring. It's not happening. If you look at that nipple surface, it's covered in grey lead oxide. There's no sign of that articulating in the round holes in the sort of wheel bit there. So what it's doing effectively is bending the cable. When it pulls the cable back down again, in the instance of that pull cable, when you let the throttle off, the spring is pulling the wheel to the anti-clockwise. It's pulling that cable round, and instead of it articulating in the hole, it's just bending that bit. To me, that is going to snap at some point. Now, unless you're carrying spare cables, which you can do. When I did long bike tours, I used to tape cables, spare cables, to the existing ones, just have them in place. And if you snapped a clutch cable in the old days, you could just whack the new one on because you'd already routed it in the privacy and comfort of your own garage. But you're going to be carrying cables, possibly. But to me, that's not good. The cause of that issue is without a doubt that the nipple is not long enough. It's a cylinder, as I say, and it is 6mm long, and it should be 9. That's how much you can get in there. If you look behind that wheel, you see it's like a white disc, plastic disc. That's got the spring behind it. The throttle return spring, which I mentioned in my previous video, is very, very hefty, and it shuts the throttle down without this push cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak to Venhill Cables, and I'm going to send them, as well as sending them the push cable and asking them to make one that's 10mm longer for me in a cable. I'm going to say, look, can you produce a cable exactly like this pull one, but with a 9mm long cylinder on the end, which would definitely engage on the far side of that wheel. This next photo, again, labouring the point somewhat. There you go, look. You can see it's flat. And there's absolutely no wear on the actual cylindrical nipple end. There's no wear on that. It hasn't rotated. What it's done is it's remained fixed, cockeyed in the wheel, and any movement up and down and rewinding that cable around the wheel is transmitted to that surface there. My advice, for what it's worth, is I would check your cables. Take that right hand side injector cover off and just see if you're and post here if you don't mind, just to say, well, look, mine's sitting perfectly in the hole properly, it's rotating when I tighten the throttle, and it's articulating, as it were, when it rewinds it back in. I'd be interested to know, because I think it's a design fault. I think it's a design fault in terms of the cable nipple not being long enough. I'm not happy with that. I wouldn't be happy to go on a long distance, or even a short distance, quite honestly, with that happening. Because it will, as I say, one of the cables had frayed. That one's not frayed yet. So I shall have a word with Venhill and see what they say. I've got one of their clutch cables, as numerous other people have got. So well worth having. Far better quality cable. Again, I think it's an indicator of, an inexpensive bike. They're not going to put really fancy cables on, are they? And that is definitely, well, let me know what you think. As I say, I've got one or two other pictures here where you can just get a sort of graphic view of what's going on. I'd be interested if it's happening on your bike. Just say, well, yeah, they're sitting in the holes perfectly and everything's fine. Or guess what? It's just the same as yours, James England. I would be very interested to know. And here's another photograph coming up now, which is a sort of so wait for it. Here it comes. A sort of back end view of the wheel thing that rotates. Here it comes. So you can see the wheel there with a hole in it and the slotted bit for putting the cable through, and you can see on the far side of that wheel there is a circular, you can see it just like a quadrant there. That's the hole on the other side of that wheel where that nipple is supposed to go in. And as I say, there is some evidence of wear on that nipple, but it's certainly, you can see the bend in the cable there. To me, that's definitely trouble waiting to happen. And so there it is, the bend in it. Now if you look at this next picture, you'll see what I mean about how it sits in the actual disc, you know, the wheel bit, the bit that rotates. And if you look at this now, there it is, look. That's how it sits, and I've tried straightening it with pliers. I've lined it all up correctly. The minute I operate the throttle, it does that. Check yours, do us a favour, just need 2 little screws, Allen bolts in my case. Just take your side bit off and have a look. See if your nipples, well, I'll get banned definitely off YouTube. See if your nipples are doing that. You know, it can't just be my bike. An update at some point as soon as I get any news from Ben Hill, but if in the meantime, if you can be bothered, just removing your right hand side injector cover and just have a look and let me know. In the meantime, take care. If you're out on your bike, I hope may your cables never snap, and mind how you go. Speak later, bye.